Proudly We Served, sponsored by the Leland Legacy.
I'm Al Bledsoe, Veterans of Foreign War, Post 1108. Allen Paul, Richmond, Indiana.
Jim Brown, Director of Veterans Affairs for Mike Pence.
Tim Dyke, Director of Training and Service at Indiana Department of Veteran Affairs.
I'm Matt Vincent, Director of Care for the Indiana Department of Veteran Affairs.
Welcome to a special session of Proudly We Served, and we're going to have an hour session today. We're very fortunate to have these four gentlemen today. Three from Indianapolis that work with Veterans Affairs, and retired Senator Allen Paul. And Allen, why don't you give us a few words before we get started today?
Well, I want to say I'm pleased that these gentlemen could join us also. Sure. I think as we did in the first program, there's a lot of questions that veterans have. And when I had a Senate office, that was a lot of our work, was working with veterans and people calling in wanting to know where to go. These guys honestly provide that service, and I thank you for having us on here and letting them tell their stories and giving the information that needs to go out. So thanks again.
Well, we're glad to do that, and we're glad that it all worked out where everybody could come here, because there are a lot of those questions, and hopefully we can get to one of those questions that every veteran's concerned about.
Well, and you have the director here also.
Yeah, so he, well, is this a good answer or a political answer?
That's a good answer.
Okay. Okay, so let's start with Matt. Matt, I'm going to ask you a question about PTSD, which is was a problem when we came home from Vietnam. A lot of guys had the problem, and a lot of people thought that it was just people that's crazy and didn't really pay attention to it. But now it seems to be kind of focused in just a little bit. So give us a little bit of what the state is doing. What are we doing to help correct that problem? And do we have the proper care for those veterans that need it?
Well, this has become a nationwide thing over the past 12 to 15 years since this current relevancy, these wars that have been fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think, nobody's putting it past saying, well, these veterans before didn't have post-traumatic stress. Well, it was always called something different. It was, battle fatigue, whatever it may be. Now, with science coming so far within the past decade or so, they've noticed a lot more things. They've been able to research areas in the brain where they've seen, something that's not normal, and that usually is post-traumatic stress. And the same with traumatic brain injuries. Usually with a traumatic brain injury comes post-traumatic stress, because if you are blown up in a convoy, and that's obviously very traumatic, it shakes your body, and with that there might be post-traumatic stress as well. But I think the scientific research over the past 15 years has come a long way. Not we, but the VA and several of the research centers have been able to, look back towards the different eras and realize that, these guys went through more, and maybe not more, but the same amount of traumatic experiences as, what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it's come a long way. I think, from when I got out of the military in 2008, from, what they've done there, and now 2016, they have focused a lot of their work towards post-traumatic stress, different recovery methods, whether it be, cognitive behavioral therapy or, therapy being in the nature, fishing, all those outdoor activity experiences can help somebody overcome their post-traumatic stress. And I don't believe post-traumatic stress ever goes away, but it can be summoned into something that, we can learn to live with. And, just as I think we all have experienced combat in one regard or another, and it's something that you won't ever forget. So I think the biggest thing right now is suppression of these feelings, And there's a lot of different ways that the VA has come forward to assist with this. And I think right now they're at a point where they're kind of cutting back on the medications that they're providing and rather treating them, with a real mental, I guess, capacity to help them out.
Sure. I would think that the session business would be better than actually medicating them, because I know veterans firsthand that have PTSD from this county that they do have that issue, but it's all in the medication. And sometimes if they don't have that medication, you can tell there's a certain amount of irritation.
Absolutely.
So, but at the same time, we should be, or we should try anyway. I've always felt like that we can overcome anything if we need to. We have to have a little bit of God's help to do it.
Yes.
But we can sure overcome things. So that is kind of a spot that I think that the VA is, and in Indiana anyway, it seems that we're really trying to help veterans. So what is the focus that you get into, Tim, with these service officers and things like that? Tell me a little bit more about what you do there.
Our basic focus is supporting what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. I get phone calls pretty much from the time I get in the morning till the time I leave. It's not constant, but I always get one or two that'll call, and they know the answer, but they just want to reaffirm it, because a lot of them are in that office by themselves, and that there's basically no one else to call. Trying to get through on the VA's hotline, it's a nationwide thing, and you're on a wait time, and they don't have all that time to wait because they need an answer because they have the veteran sitting right there in front of them. Well, we pick up our phone when they call, and it's not always me. Matt picks up the phone, or other people that work in the office pick up the phone, but they call in quite a bit. So it's basically a support network that we provide for the county service officers, and just reaffirming the answer they already know, or it might be something, I'll bet every day I get a call that I just don't know the answer to right off the top of my head, that I have to research, and we research it together and find the answer, and then we know for the next time.
There's nothing better, I don't think, any better than a personal call. We had a gentleman on here a couple months back. He was retired, I think, from the House of Representatives, and he was talking about one of the best programs he thinks, if it could be done, which would take a lot of manpower to do it. But if a veteran comes home today from Iraq, Iran, and soon to be Syria, and he comes home and needs some support, we should have a person, maybe Alan, if he's got time, or I'd do it certainly if I had the time, is call that veteran, welcome him back into the community, set him up with the correct phone numbers for service officers, and if this guy don't give you the answers you're looking for, here's Tim's phone number in Indianapolis, and if he can't help you, here's Jim Brown's phone number, and he could surely help you. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a kind of chain of command I think that we are to be very progressive with, and because I don't quite understand, and we was talking about this during the break, I don't quite understand when a young veteran says, well, I didn't get the help I needed.
We agree with that too.
That,
and it's tough for us to, know these individuals. So if you ever come and find somebody that just got out, their mom, or they're staying with their cousin or whatever, I would encourage them to call us. We literally will answer the phone. We'll talk to them on the weekends. There's been plenty of times where I've, called somebody on the weekend and, ensured they're okay, and whatever they need that we've helped them get. I mean, it's just, and I think, on a peer level, it makes a lot of difference. They get out of the military, they lose that camaraderie, and if they find out, okay, well, geez, this person on the other side of the phone line, wow, they went to combat, they served in combat as well. I'd like to talk with them and have a more comfortable conversation.
Sure.
This last weekend on the 4th of July, I met somebody at the fireworks, a Marine. He's been out for 2 years and had never, just like you said, never went to the VA. He didn't know anything, that was available to him. And I just gave him my business card and said, hey, man, call me anytime. Let's get a cup of coffee. Let's figure this out for you. And we want to be able to provide that service for all the veterans that come to us. And we also want to reach out to them in whatever capacity that we can.
Sure.
Al, one of the new improvements from the federal VA is something that's just recently happened in Tim and Matt's area, is that the Department of Defense management system now releases these people that are released from the military service. So Tim's system gets that once a week from the people that are out of the service. So it gives us an opportunity to know where they live. Can you speak to that, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still getting a hard copy of discharge papers, and we get them periodically throughout the month. Probably, what would you say, Matt? Maybe 300 or 400, sometimes in excess of that, of the individual discharge paperwork. We recently got access to the veterans who are getting out, and we have an all-inclusive list of who recently got out and where their now new address is. As close as we can get it. I mean, I understand people move and whatnot, but this could be a way that, like you were speaking, of sending a letter out, welcoming them back to Indiana.
Right.
And we're the Department of Veteran Affairs for the state of Indiana. Find out what county they're in. There's a county service officer right there local if you don't want to travel all the way to Indianapolis from Gary or Evansville or other places that it's a 3-hour drive. And just give them a basic blanket letter stating who we are, what resources are out there if you have questions, or you can visit our website, or just pick up the phone and we'll answer it and we'll answer your questions and get you linked up with those who can help you.
There's nothing any worse than to make a phone call, especially there's a I can't say the exact thing, it's on television, but it's a commercial by the Veterans Affairs, not Indiana, but the national veterans and things, and it's an 800, and it comes on the phone and it says if you're contemplating suicide or hurting yourself, hang up and call this number. And I'm thinking, what are they saying? Do they realize what they just said? If this guy's going to try to kill himself, is he going to take the time out to hang up and call it and then get a voice recording that says, hold on, buddy, I'll be with you in 20 minutes?
Your caller 10, there's a 5-minute wait, right?
Yeah, I mean.
I think they fixed that glitch within the past couple of months. They've realized that, okay, this might not be the best way to do it, so.
Not at all.
I'm pretty sure they fixed that, and any call to that hotline is going to go directly to a human. And I think for some reason or another, their messaging system got screwed up somehow, and it unfortunately happened, and they missed a bunch of calls. But one of the other things that we're doing right now is a suicide prevention, I guess, kind of an implementation plan. So right now, I've been trained to provide gatekeeper training to people that come in constant contact with veterans. So, for instance, the county veteran service officers, we've trained them the last 2 years by the VA and myself as to how to react when somebody might be, contemplating suicide. And another training for that is it's called QPR training. It's question, persuade, refer. It's comes from CPR, an emergency response to somebody that's, in shock or having a heart attack, whatnot. This is essentially the same thing, but for somebody that's contemplating suicide. So QPR is question, persuade, refer. We encourage to ask, these gatekeepers, these service officers, these people that are constantly in front of the veterans, they might be their peer mentor or somebody from the Veterans Court, is, ask them the question, are you contemplating suicide? If they are, persuade them to get help, and then the last, refer, the R, let's go get help right now, or refer them to see a specialist in that area. So it's always good, especially with the county service officers, they know what's around. They know how to get a hold of, if there's a counseling station right down the street from them, they can refer this person directly there. All the VAs, they have emergency assistance for suicide. It's not, it's essentially an emergency room for a broken leg. They have that same thing for people that are contemplating suicide. So that's definitely on our agenda, and it has been for the past several years. We all understand that 22 veterans at military are committing suicide every day, and that's incredibly unfortunate. And I think we've all known somebody that has, and I know from my unit especially. I mean, it's been 8 years, and still these thoughts are going through their minds, and it's unfortunate. So we want to try our hardest to tackle that.
At what I do, I run into a lot of veterans, and I spend a lot of time just sitting and talking to them.
Yes.
And a lot of them are Vietnam guys. A lot of them are damaged merchandise, that's what I call it, where they somewhere along went down the road of life, they didn't make the right turn. So they ended up and got themselves in trouble. I just recently talked to a gentleman that way, and I told him, I said, you know, it's you hate to think that you're where you're at, and yet this gentleman who served needs help.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you come in. I mean, you're a real advocate to helping people with that. That's really good in the county. So.
Well, we tried to, and there is a lot of it.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot when you really
And they're getting older now, too.
Well, yeah. You're getting
That makes a difference.
I'm getting
So
young.
some of these things become a little larger.
I understand. So, but all of this stuff is just really good. I wish back in the day, if that's the right word to say, that they had this many services, because I didn't really even know what the VA was until I was already gone. I mean, I can't even remember. But I know that I just didn't come in contact with them, but I really come in contact with them, I think, in 2006, maybe, or 7. Mm-hmm. And I realized that the VA was there. Because at the time they were grading Vietnam guys on a scale 1 to 10, they were a 10. And then as Iraq and Iran and their Syria guys, they kept pushing them up till their position was going to be ahead of the Vietnam guys. So I don't know whether they're feeling that maybe the Vietnam guys, that era, if you will, is over, and now we got to get on to the younger guy, trying to take care of the younger guy.
Well, I don't think they think it's over. I think it unfortunately took this war to go back to a different generation and realize, okay, wow, we forgot about a whole generation that came back and had the same issues. So, like I said, unfortunately, it took another entire war and people losing their lives and coming home with, you know, these issues that, wow, maybe we got to go back and look at these Vietnam veterans. You know, we had to go back and look at the guys that served during Desert Storm. Sure. We had to go back and look at the guys that served in Korea. That, you know, a lot of them were forgotten. I know, for example, my grandpa, he never even went to the VA, and he served two different tours in Korea, you know, fighting the Chinese as they were coming, you know, by the thousands. So like I said, unfortunately it did take another war, but I think we've seen in the past few years that we've been around is that a lot of these Vietnam guys are coming forward. They are asking for the help that they deserve, absolutely. And, you know, our biggest thing is let's help them.
Well, that's
Absolutely.
the big thing that I have.
They've done a lot for us, too.
Well,
I want to make sure to say that. The Vietnam guys that have seen, you know, my generation coming back, they have done so much to get us help because they didn't want to see us go by the wayside like they did. So it's pretty incredible what that generation has done for this generation.
And some of them are pretty hard-headed. I mean, because I run into them a lot, and I ask them, you know, are they using the VA to their best benefit, or what are they doing? And a lot of them will be real negative about that, and it's like I tell them, you know, you can't be helped if you don't reach out your hand and at least ask. You can't, nobody's just going to call you up and say, hey, we know you served in Southeast Asia and we want to try to help you. They're not going to do that, but if you call them, they'll surely try to help you.
And there's always been a stigma with the VA too. You get poor health care there.
Yeah.
There was all these movies about the horrible conditions in the VA hospital.
Why do they do that?
And I don't know.
Why do they do that?
I get VA health
nonsense?
care. I've gotten great health care at the VA. They have the same issues as any civilian medical facility has, and they probably do a better job in many cases than the civilian sector does. But I get great medical care at the VA hospital.
Yeah, and they can help you with. I recently had an issue. I have a problem with my left leg. Don't want to go along sometimes, so I have to have some support. And so I called them, and they said, look, and I didn't want the VA shoes, but they said, look, we'll do whatever you need to, because I have to have an elevation on my left leg and left foot. And so I was really nervous about that, because I always had one person do it. And my goodness, they returned those things. I mean, they were perfect.
Wow.
And so I took them to the guy that does the shoes here in town, and to get them all polished and all that stuff. And he said, man, alive, they did one heck of a job on these things. It's Hangers, I think, is the name of that operation. It's on 27, Chester Boulevard. So I think that we as a country are trying to be a little bit proactive. I think some of the guys in our generation possibly maybe they can be helped, you think? And you know
I
probably
think so,
more
sure.
as much about things like that as I do, that sometimes, again, they have to ask for help. So
You can't do anything if they don't say something.
no, and I think that's the biggest problem, I think, with the NOM generation, if you want to call it that, is they just simply, they're either embarrassed or they don't want to help. And some of them, I've run into a couple of guys that almost get downright mean and just didn't even want to deal with it. And I'm the kind of person, I want to know why you ain't going to deal with it then.
And then you got that, the veteran does come forward and ask for help and then realizes, oh my goodness, I got all these forms to fill out.
Yeah.
Well, then I got to point them to the county service officers in our office.
Exactly.
We've seen these forms time and time again.
Sure.
The county services officer seen them a lot more than I have. They know how to fill them out. They know how to get the paperwork done.
Yeah.
And that's what they're there for, to help. So
Sure.
they don't have to worry about, I have questions about this. Am I filling this out right?
Yeah.
Where do I send it? Go to your county
Excellent
service
point.
officer, and they'll help you out with that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think at the time when the Vietnam era, when they were coming home and they were in their mid-20s, early 30s, a lot of the issues that we work with daily now with the current soldiers, and then we're being bantered about, and it took some years. The VA did not want to deal with like Agent Orange. So then the enthusiasm that they had, or the time that they were willing to commit towards a form, they did not like Army medicine because they'd seen some of that in Vietnam.
Sure.
And they didn't want to deal with the forms. Now that they need it, we're better situated, and some of those issues are done. We have a number of Vietnam veterans, and one of our folks that's in the care department has Vet to Vet, and they meet every Tuesday?
Twice a week, actually Monday and Tuesday. It's just a peer-to-peer support group. Essentially what it is, it's a group of guys from each era of war. There's somebody from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and Afghanistan and Iraq. And those guys meet as, there might be 12 to 17, 20 people every night, or, when they do meet. And I know there's a few groups across the state that do have these peer-to-peer support networks.
Sure.
And, that's just incredible for the guys that, they might not want to go to the VA and get some help. So they just want to talk to their pals, and that's what these are set up for.
So the net result, though, is like this Vet to Vet, it is faith-based, so that addresses needs there that can cure some of the anxiety that, and that there's no other way to cure. And so they also relate any of these different eras. They then relate. We had one gentleman coming in that had been a medic, and in one of our locations, and he was unable to save his people that were badly wounded in 3 different circumstances in Afghanistan. Well, he hadn't seen his VA psychiatrist in over a year. But when we talked to him, we knew the route where these things happened, the route Utah it happened to be. We were there, Tim, in Afghanistan when this fellow had these circumstances. So he related to us, so he became friendly. So then when they meet, like in Vet to Vet, they're talking to other people that understands things that are locked inside, so then they open up, and then they start going to some of these other things. They may not need a new hip. They need a new way and outlook. The younger ones need to reintegrate, and then they start talking about the badly needed training that's required vocationally, like right where we're at here at Ivy Tech, to get the jobs that are available now and in the next 10 years. So then they start thinking in a positive way. So you catch both the generations there, Vietnam vets turning their life around with some 25 years to go maybe.
Sure.
And then the current ones that begin to stay with their family and get back into it vocationally. We are able to support them in different ways or get them some support. Some of them want to start a new business, and we help them through other agencies in the state government to get them going on their own business. A lot of that's federal funds, but then they get going. So then you have a family unit, a mom and a dad and the kids, they're going to school, they get a house, they have income, but it's because other things were repaired in their thought process and in their faith beliefs that stabilized them. It's probably the most beneficial thing that we do are in these benefit areas with the medical care and all the things that go with that, and then getting them their benefits. That for me, I just wasn't going to deal with an Army hospital in Fort Lewis, Washington. When I got home, I wanted out of there, and I could have had some surgery done at the time. I was just done with it. And then with all the back and forth legislatively over Agent Orange and stuff, I just never went to the VA. So that's my Vietnam mentality, you know. So now it's different for both eras, if you would, the young and the old, as Lincoln would remark, and that they can both get something out of this, and then the older ones can stabilize things for their family as well. So it's really good. That's one of the rewards, I think, is that we see a lot of goodness out there. The whole community, 501c3s with their grants, veteran service officers with all these posts from the many services, it's their opportunity, and they do and always have jump on in that community with the churches and with the county veteran service officers. So it's a big team, and then a VA federal is out there too. So I see a lot of cohesiveness in the last year. And then just like this program I mentioned earlier, DOD management, giving us information that we can actually use to start contacting people. Well, they weren't going to do that. That was secured information 2 years ago. Wow. So they're trying each day. I think 3 times this week, I've shot an email that came in on some new thing. So I must say that they are opening up some, not as fast as we would like. The Choice Act, I think, is something that could improve greatly to where people can have things done quicker. Instead of just continuing to make the federal VA bigger. You know, if it was a company, maybe a private company wouldn't do that. So they'd have different tactics. So I see a lot of progress here, and we do it one person at a time. And the Vietnam veterans are, I think, improving to where they want to, and some just aren't, may never do that. It's not uncommon from all the other wars. You know, the combat fatigue and kind of shutting down compartmentalizing their emotions, and they have to do their part and step up and say, I would like some of this help, and then we're just tickled to be there to hold ourselves out. That's our job, and then that's our passion.
I think that with that kind of a vision, because the younger guys, the Iraq, Afghanistan guys, that come home, you know, it's a different situation. I mean, they can watch television, which would, to me, that's we shouldn't really do that as much as we do. But it seems like the news media's eyes are out there every place. So here's a kid that's come home that's lost a leg, maybe he's lost an arm, maybe something else has went wrong, and then all of a sudden he's sitting watching Fox, and all of a sudden they're talking about all this bombing and stuff going on, especially, you know, with this. When we pulled out of Iraq, and that's kind of a different story, but you know, we really caused some issues there.
That was a tough pill to swallow. I know, I mean, personally, I had been to all those areas where ISIS pretty much took over, and to see it kind of fall into their hands was incredibly frustrating. So I know a lot of the other guys that, you know, from my generation that did go to those places. It's frustrating to see, you know, that we did pull out, and now we're having to go back in and bomb continuously to weed them out of those areas that, you know, the Iraqis had maintained, you know, once we left. And it's just frustrating. It was a frustrating war, I think, for everybody.
I can see that.
Yeah, but, you know, it's there, it's done. You know, I think a lot of the people that went over are proud of what we did, you know, our service to the country, and always will be. And I think, you know, if I had the opportunity to do it again, by all means I would. I don't know how long I would last, but I would try it.
Well, the thing of it is, and that's what just really, it's an irritation, and I don't know how Alan feels about that, but it's a real irritation to see, you know, when guys come home, we have all this big fanfare pretty much anymore. But and then if the president's involved, he reads a scripted message, and none of that. And maybe I shouldn't say this, but none of that. Somewhere it just doesn't seem like it's heartfelt, and it's just words, and that's all it is. It's just idle chatter, as I call it. But it's not really like these guys are the real deal.
Yes.
I mean, they generally care. You can tell sitting here talking to them, and I can tell now that we've got guys that really care, and I think that's what most veterans want. Don't you think?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, and that's why we're going to be expanding
Yeah.
some of these things. I hope in the next General Assembly. I think it's time to step up, and the federal government has really not carried the load, in my opinion. So I think it's time for the state to step up, and I hope give us the funds for these new programs.
Well, I think we need the Fed maybe, but I think it should be kind of limited. I think these guys are doing a better job. It sounds like to me that the state level operates so much more effectively, but when you
It
get
does.
the Fed involved, then that's when the menagerie and the maze starts.
And
you
that's
get
why we just like
lost
to
and
maintain
delusional
those
or
relationships, because you never know, when you're going to have to go to the VA. I mean, we want them to be able to provide us the answers we're looking for. So, we will always remain, partners with them. I mean, we have to. It's, we don't work for them. They don't work for us by any means. But, I think it's important, and this goes for all states and all VAs. I mean, for us to stay in constant communication, and like Jim had alluded to earlier, the Vincent director that has been reaching out to us, rather than us reaching out to them and us trying to track things down, what their leadership is doing now to understand what the states are doing, I think that's very unique, and I think it's about time that that's happened, and we're very fortunate to be around right now to have these relationships with the VA. But I agree with you. We don't want that big government coming in and trying to get a hold of our operations. What we're
No,
doing.
and this group is small. Aren't there only
There's
28?
about 24 of us,
Think of
and
that.
that's
That's
part
amazing.
That's all.
Part of
They
that
do
is,
all of this.
Yeah.
Part of that's the National Guard, and then part of that is our grant money for the TANF, and then the people that work at Family Relief. But the governor did double the staff that I found in January of 2013.
Wow.
And then we've quadrupled in these other elements I just mentioned. But then we get back to that communication statewide. There are all these heroes out there in all these counties that are all set up. So our job is to be a facilitator, an information provider, and a trainer, if you would, and then be a bully pulpit and to make the state work and orchestrate things for veterans. And then I said it earlier today that don't confuse us with the feds. They have the law, and then they have the money. So we don't have that money. And so a lot of things are proposed that are really federal responsibilities. Well, I think then that should be incumbent on our federally elected officials to work real hard on, and then to change things like with the VA to make it better. And then, because there's things I would like, and we tell the Vincent director on our calls that we would, and we belabor it, that we would wish they would not do this and make it easier on the veteran. So we've done that. They do make individual exceptions. So I, for one, as the legislature for the state come up with what they want as a bill and then vote on it if it goes before the governor, if there's anything that enhances our agency in these areas of benefits, care, and vocational training, which is the GI Bill, is what that measurement is the GI Bill, not exceptions by companies. There are companies that will pay for training, but this is the numbers back from the GDX are what the VA paid for vocational and higher education. So I think we're like 16th in the country on that. So we're right about our population level on that. But we need it. We need that. Well, that comes from the federal government, and we have a agency, a smaller agency called the State Approving Agency, which goes out to institutions and companies that want to deal with training for the GI Bill so that they can then receive and do business with the VA as an educational institution. Ivy Tech is one of them. Then they also inspect that, our state approving agency. But Right now, because of the bill that was passed in January 2013 to use the county service officers, we've just been at that for just over 3 years. Some of the states did what Mike Pence did finally. After all these governors, Republican or Democrat, after all these years, Mike Pence, when he passed that law that put him really to work and Matt to work, those were emphasizing us working on a federal law that's been there since the late 40s.
Oh, wow.
So we're doing that, and so then there's more attention given in the counties towards that, although they always worked on it. Now they really work on it. So we'll catch up to a lot of these things. So we've gone from being one of the lower ranking states to where we're in the middle now, just in 3.5 years.
Wow.
So some of these things can improve. The veteran with more awareness and us contacting them that we're available to them for them to get their federal services. Part of that package is the VA, because we're in partnership with them too. So then they're getting all this information and we know where they're at. So through outreach, constant outreach, we try to hook up with them. They have to decide, do they want to use this service? So we'll take anything we can get for the state, because we'll run with it. But it's federal money, and they're the deciders, and we're the advocates, if you would. We're like the lawyers saying, my client needs this or that. So it's really a privilege to work on that. But I see our progress that we'll catch up with the states that are in the top 15 in 3 or 4 years, just within a 8-year cycle. We'll catch up with the people that talk about what we've just gotten in the last 3 years from bills signed in Indiana. We'll catch up to these states within 8 years, only because Indiana knows how to get it done. But it'll be the CVSOs and the Veteran Service Officers and the collection of federal and state and 501c3s that actually make a success out of it in their area. So we don't need 200 more people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? State government doesn't necessarily grow.
Sure.
If they feel that they need to add that on, then they'll give it to us. I think we have to let it play out, myself personally, and in that what we've set in motion, we've made progress on. These people, like Tim's accredited people, do better. The military service organizations are more involved now than I've seen them in the benefit package. They're also involved heavily in legislation. The things I've mentioned here in the last 4 or 5 minutes of rambling are things that we need to do from 1947 and 48 is what we're talking about. So, and it's what you alluded to. We need to pay attention directly to the veteran. And so then we refuse to lose our focus. Less meetings for us. We have blue collar work to do. So rather than talk about you need something, we need to open up the computer and say, my brother, where's your paperwork?
Yeah.
And if nothing else, if we see him go, so we'll see you Tuesday, and you know those 3 forms, you know in the drawer that they're in, because we always put them in some envelope where we can't find them. Bring that on Tuesday. So then we've made an appointment. Well, that we win these victories one at a time. So it's really, for me and all of us, it's been rewarding and a blessing to do that.
Well, it seems to me that that's the way to do it, that one-on-one. I don't think you can do better than that. I mean, you can't, because when you speak to veterans collectively, you know, it's just kind of like a shotgun. You're just shooting it in the air someplace. But when you're dealing with a one-on-one, I think the veteran, because most veterans want to feel important, I think, realistically, when you're talking to them. So when you're focused on what they're doing, I think they enjoy it. They really enjoy that. So,
well, I could tell you, like, firsthand, I mean, as Jim was a former state command sergeant major, and speaking with his soldiers, I mean, I never had any leadership like that in the Marine Corps. Literally, it was just, we train, we go to war, came back, train, go to war. So we didn't have, you know, a consistent leader that would, you know, reach out to the individual Marines and say, hey, how are you doing now? But I've seen, you know, with him and a lot of the National Guard people, they actually do care about their troops. And, you know, I've wanted to, or I've tried to instill that into me, is to where, reaching out to that guy that, needs picked up off the ground and brush his back off, and, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
And, I think that's important for people to realize is, that's how we feel. That's how we operate at our state agency. That's how we want to make you feel. We want to make you feel important. You served our country. We want to take care of you.
Well, and I think another thing is our generation, the Vietnam veteran generation, the use of the computer, and I've discussed that many times with all of you. You go to the VFW or American Legion, whatever, and talk to them. Many people just take for granted that everybody has a computer. That is not so.
Right.
And if you go around to these organizations, many of them don't have any or have any access to it, or don't even know the first thing to do on it. These guys open the door.
Yeah.
And so when they sit down, they can actually work on the computer, pull up the things they need, and then give them a hard copy.
Yeah.
And I think that is really important because so many of them, they've either been rejected, or I've watched here at school, they tell them, go over and get on the computer and do such and such. Well, they leave. They go right out the door.
Absolutely.
They can't do it.
I understand.
They haven't, people over the age of 70 or what, they haven't had any training.
And
so
obviously
they offer that.
we can't bash them for that. I mean, I grew up, from first grade on having a computer. So if there's a time that, I can provide assistance to an older veteran, and, I feel bad saying that. I don't mean that.
Thanks.
What do you mean by that?
Hey, you guys are young at heart, though. No, but we always, we're always, always on the phone. If somebody's got questions, we'll get on the computer, we'll pull their information up for them. We can send them a hard copy in the mail. We invite people to come to our office to, do that paperwork. And now the county service officers are all equipped with, good technology that we've been able to provide for them through that bill that Jim was talking about earlier, 1387. It provided some money for computers and also training. So that, I think that's helped out a lot. People have come from typewriters to, laptops to, the best things that, whoa, this is what you could do with a computer? That's pretty cool.
I'll tell you a story about that, and then we'll go into what Tim's got to say. I don't know what kind of phone I got. I don't have any idea. But I told my wife I was getting irritated because I said, I need to get on the internet. Well, on the phone, it's got that little thing that says Chrome on it.
Yeah.
That's the internet.
You've got an iPhone.
You thought it was a picture of some Chrome.
I thought, I don't need that business. I want the internet. I didn't need that. But I don't know how long I've had that phone.
No, they have the flip phone.
Yeah, I just realized that the other day. I shouldn't say that.
I liken it to an auto dealership to where our
where I
cars
work.
are finally paid off now, but the last couple times wife and I have purchased a car, the salesman sells us the car, but they don't stick us in the finance cubicle with all this paperwork and a computer, or we'd never buy the car. So they give, most of the time it's a young lady, and she picks out the bank and does the 20, it's more than a house closing. Okay, it's likened to the veteran now. They've come to an outreach, and they don't know how to get it done. So, or they don't want to do it. They want to have it done for them. Well, then that's what we're doing. So we have people there in teams. We address like 21 things, and there's like one of our recent outreach had 57 booths. Well, they'll get up on the computer and they will do just like the finance girl, or there's not going to be a car sold today, right? Unless you do it, you the auto agency. We're not going to get this person in the Vietnam, since we're all in the same boat. They're trying to wonder what Chrome is on our iPhone. So, so we type that out for them, and what happens is they then take the next step. It was the paperwork and the form that Tim alluded to earlier, and then away they go, and in 6 months they have money. They've gone to see the doctor. They figured out how they weren't going to pay for medications anymore. That's good. And so that's it. It's that personal thing. And then here's somebody that has taken an oath to give up their life for the United States government and for our country. Just like the start of the program here, looking at the lead-in. And it has the Purple Heart on it, and World War II and Korea on that. Well, those are the people we serve. And if we don't have the passion to help and be considerate, then we shouldn't have the job.
Yeah.
But so then one thing we know, just like a business, in our customers that come to us in our business, we're not going to make a sale, that's signing them up or getting them, unless we take hold of the situation and do the paperwork correctly and train the people that do it across the state.
Yeah.
So that has been our mission, if you would, and so then in its imperfectness, us and the approach and everybody has a chip in the game, and then none of us are where we should be, any of the organizations, but we work on that constantly for the veteran to get what they need. So we have a lot of success, but it is one at a time. There's no two claims that are the same. That's why they get all bogged down. So,
And another thing is also we have a lot of returning female veterans also, and I think that's something you want to mention because these guys are very active in working with females that come back. And in the past it had not been that way, meaning after World War II and so on. But I know you have really opened it up, and with legislation we opened up.
The governor passed to have a women's coordinator here, and other states had one. So we have a women's coordinator so women can go directly to things that are of their needs. And then the Army now, and the military, but I know the Army figures, it's like 18 going to 19% for women in the Army. And we cannot fight a war without them. However, there are some unique challenges to that for women.
Sure.
And then a lot of the disappointments that women have, and we encountered that with women in the forward operation bases in Afghanistan with the 82nd and 101st Airborne. Well, it's held at the company, then battalion and brigade level. Well, some of the things that women want addressed, if it was in the civilian world, they'd be going to court and getting an attorney. Well, the military doesn't do very well in that venue, so they are getting better at it. But you folks deal with women all the time. So
Do you have any women service officers?
Yes, we have quite a few. I bet there's close to a dozen maybe.
Wow.
And then there's assistants that work in the office, and quite frankly, they're probably doing a lot of the work, running down paperwork and things of that nature. But yeah, all the female CVSOs are on top of it, and they're serving their counties well.
Women would be more, or just from looking outside at it, women are more thorough with paperwork than men are.
I think more than half of our office now is women. So
yeah, that's good.
We come in that office and stand in parade rest, and they kind of give us orders.
Well,
So
here comes all
Are they
these
military?
folders.
Are the women
yes,
military?
they all are.
They're
Yep.
all military.
And there's still
Wow.
some that are in the
they're all
National
veterans.
Guard, and I think all of them have deployed at least 1 or 2 times to Afghanistan and or Iraq.
Wow.
So that's, we're always looking for those people. We want the people that can catch the audience that needs to be caught. We need those women that served
Sure.
on active duty.
And they're all very passionate. So one of our laws in the office is, even if the door closed, but the governor isn't in there, or the lieutenant governor, which rarely happens, in our office, knock, and here they knock, and we open the door. We're in a meeting discussing something, and somebody ends up signing paperwork, because when we sign this is family relief within 3 days for somebody that their hair is on fire. So that's the number one thing. But it's these women that put together that packet. All the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and that is part of their thing. Now, they're capable of doing anything, running the whole show, but I mean, with that detail-oriented passion and enthusiasm and stick-to-itiveness, it really makes us successful, and I would say for the most part kind of makes a kind of a family atmosphere there. The doors are not closed. You can go see anybody and lean in the middle of that doorway and get this stuff signed. It's the paperwork that turns out to be the benefit for the veteran.
Sure.
So who would be so bold as to sit on that and only sign them once a week, or as we saw when we first got there, sign them once a month or something like that? So their areas, they churn out paperwork, And so on the charts that show since we've been there where we are allowed to spend money, they've just spiked because we're spending the money that's been donated by veterans
Wow.
and companies for veterans. Well, it's not our money.
Yeah, get out and buy those veteran license plates.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where that money's going to
Yeah.
help your fellow veterans.
So it's instantaneous, just like if it was a sale. That's our business. So business is booming if we're doing something for the veteran, not stacking and say on Fridays we'll sign those. Because they have their money by, what, if it's Monday,
Yeah,
they have
it's
their
a couple
money in the
days.
bank by Thursday.
If somebody needs assistance, I mean, like I said, our office is always open, and we want to get you that as quick as possible because
Boy,
they're
that's good.
veterans. They
That's
deserve it.
good information.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, for people in this county that need help, because there are guys and gals probably that really need help.
Absolutely.
So I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
That's pretty
we get them
quick.
from all over the state.
Yeah.
I mean, in one given day, we can have 10 different applications from 10 different counties, and they're all individually based. Somebody might need assistance to pay their mortgage. The other might have had their car went out somehow or another, and but we try our best to make sure they get that money that they deserve in an expedited manner.
We want to be sure that we get their information out so guys can write it down on the screen.
Yeah.
Or they could contact Alan or myself.
Our biggest
and
thing
we'd
is
be
our
glad to help them
website.
if we can and give them phone numbers that they can to
Sure.
get some help. Pete's pretty proactive, though. Do we have many female veterans in Wayne County?
I don't know the percentage, but yes, there are a number of them. Much more than you would think.
Yeah, okay.
I'd say there's probably at least 8 to 10%
I would
out
guess.
here, and then in the active component that aren't out yet, or aren't deemed veterans, but they're now currently serving. That's up to these 18% to 21%, growing up to where 10 years from now, again, the Army is the only figure I know on this, but 1 in 4 in the Army will be a female, but they'll be better for it, and can operate without it, without the ladies.
Do you have many concerns with the service officers when they call in? We got, how many did you say, 81 service officers?
Right now we have 91.
91, okay. So do you have people call in and, if you will, whining about something, that they need something fixed in a hurry? Do you have much of that going on? Or
Not much whining.
Okay.
No. Most of it is just an outreach for, hey, I'm trying to figure this problem out. I've looked on the internet. I just can't find anything, and we'll put a couple people on it and usually get an answer back. Usually within a half hour I can have them some type of answer back, or at least a phone number they can call that they're not going to be on hold for 40 minutes with. So, yeah, most of it is just like reconfirming what they already know because they're looking something up. In a lot of cases, it's because they're that one person in the office and they got the veteran sitting right across from them. I get a lot of calls like that, and they just don't have the time to sit there, and if they can get a quick answer because they got this person sitting across from them at the desk, then we're the better for it.
That's an excellent idea, having women do the paperwork, because then you're not going to miss a form someplace, because if it's 20 forms, or I don't know how many it is, but however many it is, women are, I work in a place where that's what they do, is all these forms, and you'd forget one or something, and in that'd stall the whole thing out if you forgot one form. So I know a little bit what's going on with some of that stuff. So that's really good. I think that women are actually doing that kind of stuff.
Well, they do that, and so they have it in a file, they have it electronically,
Sure.
and then these are, I think there's like 4 women in our office alone that want to start their own small business as veterans, and we're going to taking steps to help them get started on their way. So then if we'd lose them at some point, that means they're in their own business, and a couple of those want to do business helping veterans. So it's really pretty good, and there's a lot of programs with the Department of Administration and Economic Development that they have programs for people to be interested in small business, to help them get started, get their loans.
Sure.
The GI Bill pays a lot of that, and so that they can get a loan approved through the VA, and a bank would loan them money after they presented a good business plan, on the one hand, to get started. Then on the other, it's that if they have an ongoing business, that they could take advantage of some of the bills that have been passed since 2013, that they then can be signed up to get contract work and some priority in pieces of large contracts, for the most part, with the state as a VA-owned business or a veteran-owned business. So that's all out there.
That's interesting if the red tape is not so bogged down with it, but that's an interesting thing about small business. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Back in the day, I didn't think we did that, did we?
No.
I don't remember that.
Well,
My business plan was on my,
yeah.
here's what I'm trying to
That
do.
was a lot different than those
In an
days.
agri state, a lot of manufacturing, of course, but a lot of the folks are rural, and they want to have their own business in their town and their county, and they know everybody there, so they have to pick the business. So I hope people will contact us about letting us guide them on how to start, put their business together and their plan, how to get it funded on the one hand, and then if there's a type of business that they can provide a service to the state, that there is a priority for them, just like women-owned disadvantaged business or minority business. It's that same group in the state that can put them up to where they take a shot at it.
You need to have him give you your web page, your
Yeah.
Yes.
phone number.
www.in.gov/DVA. It's in Department of Veteran Affairs. Some people put in DAV. It's not DAV, it's DVA.
Okay.
And from there, you'll find pretty much everything we just talked about, from the Military Family Relief Fund to temporary assistance to needy families. All the county service officers have a map. We have a map on there. You can click on your county. It'll provide their specific information. Pete's information is right on there if you click on Wayne County. And so our office phone number is 317-232-3910. We have 2 people that work in the front. They're great. They answer the phone. Sometimes it's simultaneously because we have a lot of phone calls that come in, and they will transfer you to whatever you're looking for, which will fit. You know, if you're looking for employment, they'll send you to the employment specialist. For the Family Relief Fund, if you need to talk to Tim or I, they will transfer you to us. If they need to talk to Jim, they'll transfer you to Jim.
Or we might just pick it up,
Yeah,
because we do get busy
Yes,
days
we
where
do.
we're already on the
There's 10
phone and we
people
got
on
to
the
pick it
phone,
up
absolutely.
ourselves.
We're going to have to shut down. This has certainly been interesting.
Been a good one.
It's been a good one. It's
show,
been
yes.
just real informative, and thank you again,
Yeah,
Matt,
thank
for
you.
coming. Thank you, Tim, for
You're
coming.
welcome. Thank you.
And it's nice to have met you, and
to
you're
meet you,
welcome
Al.
back
Thank
anytime you want to take the time to come over. Why?
Yeah, this has been great.
We're
Thanks
very
for
pleased to
having
have
us.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Senator
I'm glad
Paul,
I was here with you.
I'm glad you.
Enjoyed it.
This has been just quite a session, and with that, we're going to sign off. And thanks for watching.